This is how we start. I'm so joking. I just made that up.
Oh my God.
I was like, what? I don't remember.
This is something new.
I know. Kathy, thank you so much for joining us today on this Edwin Teacher Talk. We're so happy to have you come and share your experiences using Edwin and EdTech in your classroom. It's been quite the year, I think, for everyone, for all educators. I was on a virtual teacher chat the other day, and the teacher started off our conversation by saying, thank you for the support. I really appreciate it. But if you say the word pivot, or if anyone else says the word pivot one more time, I'm out. And it was sort of hilarious. And I never used that word. But it goes to show how much our classrooms and our teaching styles have had to really change this year and adapt. So, Kathy, what would you say was the most challenging thing about your job this past year?
For this school year, the most challenging was when I had to teach half online and half in person. It was easier teaching completely all online or completely all in person, but the half and half, switching back and forth, was hard. It was time consuming, and it just seemed like this time around that the students needed more than they did before, because it was partway through the year, not closer to the end of the year.
Right.
Yeah. So it was a interesting transition for sure.
Yeah, I think that hybrid model seems to be the most difficult to manage and come up with strategies to support the at-home learners as well as in-class, and how do you know what to do synchronously, what to do to give them to work on their own. So that's definitely something that you'd have to figure out as you go and not know going into it what it's going to look like. But you've been using, I think, Edwin for about 2 years now. Yep. So what keeps bringing you back to Edwin, and maybe how did Edwin support that hybrid teaching model?
So I really like the fact that it provides a lot of student engagement, and it allows students to self-direct their own learning. I also like the fact that it provides so many different resources in one spot. I also like how you can put the assignments and stuff like that, or videos or whatever, straight to Google Classroom. It's very fluid that way, so it makes it a lot easier. And I just find that the students really are drawn to it because it provides them with like an alternate learning experience. So it's not just, let's read out of a textbook, let's answer questions. It's more than that, for sure.
Yeah, I think a common misconception is that Edwin is a textbook that we've just popped online. And I think that when teachers really get into it and really start using it and applying it, you realize how interactive, how engaging, how student-directed of an experience it can be. But what did that look like? And I'm curious in terms of hybrid. So do you have your virtual students using Edwin and your students that are face-to-face? I'm just curious how you've...
So the students that we had face-to-face, so we have like a grade 5-6 split this year. So the students that were in grade 6, I was using it more for science because I was teaching and still am teaching both the grade 5 science curriculum and grade 6 science curriculum, so they don't really coincide that way. With the junior high, so the 7-8 split that we have, I use it quite regularly, even if it was like when they were doing the online learning, even now in the classroom. Right now, I actually have a practicum student who's finishing her teaching degree, and she's been using it for both math and science and loving it. She was very skeptical when it came to technology, like even Google Classroom and everything, but she was so willing to learn, which was great. And yeah, she loves it. She's found lots of cool stuff on there for sure.
Awesome. Just to let you know, and I'm sure Sherry's already told you, but we have science simulations that we're going to be adding into Edwin very soon. So that will be very exciting for your science program.
Yeah,
Yes.
I actually haven't had a chance to tell her that, and I was going to say the same thing. We're on the
Sorry,
same.
I stole your thunder, Sherry.
No, not at all. We shared the thunder, Jody.
Yeah. I felt it. Yeah.
Oh, that's sweet. They'll like that. Because just the videos themselves, like last year when I was teaching them, I always go back to like the human body systems. Like I posted one of those short clips on digestion and then being able to actually see like the food traveling through the esophagus down to the stomach and everything in that short video clip was enough versus just seeing a diagram in a textbook. So it made it more meaningful for them that way.
You know, so much has changed over the past 2 years. Obviously, I think that's understatement of the year, right? Tell us how your own teaching landscape has changed and how Edwin has supported you with that.
Okay, so I am definitely moving more digital. The grade 7 and 8 class have their own, like we have a one-to-one Chromebook platform in the classroom. So each of the kids have their own. So having the ability to be able to use Edwin, tie it to Google Classroom, it just makes it, you know, a little bit more authentic for their learning. I do also rely somewhat on paper because I think it is important that they're learning not only writing skills, but they also need to know how to, you know, function with technology and typing. So it's nice, like it's a nice mix to be able to use the Edwin platform, but also still be able to do things on paper as well.
Mm-hmm. Actually, that leads into our next sort of question really well. What, if anything, has Edwin replaced? You know, have you ditched the teacher resource binders? Obviously, you haven't ditched paper and pencil completely, which is good because, like you said, so many learners need that tactile experience.
Sure.
But what if has Edwin replaced anything else?
Yeah, I don't really use binders anymore. I like that, like the Edwin has the different collections on there, so it makes it really accessible that way. I also like that you can tailor it to whatever you're teaching. So not only grade specific, but course specific as well. And then actually go through like the Alberta outcomes that tie to whatever you're teaching in the classroom. So if I'm, you know, on the fly looking for something, I can go to Science 7 and find what exactly it is that I'm looking for. So that's really nice that it's very accessible that way.
So Kathy, when you say that you don't use binders anymore, what does that look like? So do you create a collection? Do you put things in there like, you know, that this is for your science class, or do you have just specific lessons for collection? So just, can you give us an idea of what one of your collections would look like?
I kind of do both. I haven't really taken a whole lot of time to sit and actually build the collection. That's going to be one of the next stages that I'm going to do. But I have found like I've gone through the units and found things that I thought would be of interest or ties to what it is that we're learning about in the classroom, and then applying it to Google Classroom. For math and for science, like more so for science, I give them the option to either do like assignments on their Chromebook or paper. So I give them both. For math, I do some of the stuff digitally, but a lot of the times I like them to write it out to show their process. But yeah, it's nice to be able to find what it is we're looking for. I know like my student teacher has been doing more with the math. So she's found like different math challenges and problems and stuff like that, which, you know, help to build the skills that they were already learning in the classroom. And they seem to really enjoy it because like the puzzles and stuff like that, it just seems more fun than just, paper pencil work for sure.
Yeah, that's definitely something that Edwin has that's really great that I know a lot of math teachers are drawn to, are the tasks and challenges and those kinds of things in there, because it gives a more concrete reason for students to practice and to learn and to become adept at those skills. And there, that right away just increases student engagement like huge, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, she did one that was for the grade 7s. where they had to like solve the puzzle with linear algebra, and then they had to create their own puzzle and have other students in the class solve it. And like the amount of engagement we had where they were actually like building their own linear equations and actually understanding the concept, it was pretty cool to see how they picked up on it for sure.
I love that. Sherry just shared one with me. It was a Edwin collection, and I think Sherry just customized it a bit on planning your dream vacation. So it was like that connection to financial literacy. And like you said, if they can attach it to like a real world situation, it just becomes relevant and more meaningful for them, right?
For sure.
So talking about your students, I think we all know the students are probably a tougher sell than teachers sometimes. Our colleague Elaine, no joke, right? Our colleague Elaine was telling us she had a virtual classroom visit where she came into the class via Google Meet. And she said that all the students were sort of sitting there like slouched back with like their hoodies on. And they were just like, like what's this lady going to be talking about? And she said by the end, they were just like super engaged. Hoodies came off. They were like, what is this Edwin thing? Like they were just so into it. So what's like the real talk in your classroom? What are the students saying? What do they think about Edwin?
They actually enjoy it. They really like I said, with math, the different challenges and equations, things like that. For science, definitely more of the interactive things. And I like that they have like a short reading and then let's talk about your like learning your knowledge or whatever from the reading with graphics as well. So for those visual learners, and they seem to really like that supplemental knowledge that way. But even those short videos, those are good. They really like that too.
You mentioned at the beginning that you like Edwin because it does give the opportunity for some student inquiry work. Have you had your students do any like building their own collections or adding to collections or doing any research within Edwin? And what did that look like?
So building collections, not yet. But I have had them kind of explore in there as well. When we were setting it up, because it was the first time you set it up, it asked for like your province and then your classes and stuff like that. And the ones that didn't take it last year, it was like, whoa, and they're just clicking everywhere, like just, and I think that's the best way to learn anyways, is if, them trying it out and trying to figure it out, because they're so technological at this age anyways, that them trying to figure it out, they're probably going to get more out of it than, I will. So
actually, that's a technique that I've heard teachers using when they're first introducing Edwin to their students is pick a group of students and they become the Edwin experts. So they just say, you 6, you go explore, you take a week and you come back and report to me and you're going to teach me about Edwin. And then you're going to teach your peers about Edwin. And what a great way to introduce new technology to students and just get them on board and make them feel confident and expert.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So on that note, it's been amazing how much we've been inundated by educational technologies over the past year, right? There are so many tools being thrown at us through so many different avenues. And in some cases, they're even being touted as like the solution to learning. This tool will fix everything in your classroom, rather than as something that supports learning and supports excellent teaching. And you have a really interesting perspective about this, because you and I talked about this last year a little bit when I came to visit you in person with your Masters of Educational Technologies. What's your take on this environment and how Edwin fits into that, and your understanding of ed tech and the use in the classroom?
So I don't think there's one solution. Like I said before, I think it's important that students have the tactile with paper pencil work, but I also think bringing in technology is definitely important. So Edwin is one of the main forms of technology that we do use in the classroom for math and science, but that's not the only technology we use, right? So I bring in for math, we use IXL, we use Knowledge Hook, science, mostly Pear Deck. We started with another one that I found maybe 2 weeks ago now, Blookit. I don't know if you've heard of that one, but it's a game-based software where they're actually practicing skills based on whatever topic you're focusing on, but they're challenged against their peers, which is something they like. So I find that bringing in different things to engage them is good, but not focusing on just one mainstream avenue, because I don't think that's a solution by any means.
And how do you find the process of using Edwin with other tools? Is that another area of learning that's necessary, or what do you think about, you've mentioned all these other tools that you use with Edwin, or that you combine with your students. How do they fit with Edwin in that teaching story? Because
what they would learn using the Edwin portal can then be supplemented with other forms of technology. So, for example, we learned about the linear equations that they did in the last couple weeks. They did the math challenges on Edwin where they were practicing those techniques. Then we moved to a different form of software, may have been iExcel or Blooket, where we're further learning those techniques, or even Knowledge Hook. So, I think they all tie together because they learn one concept through what we're learning in the classroom, supplemented by Edwin, but then using other tools to help increase that knowledge for sure. So it's not I think they all work together.
Yeah, and I think also you're also catering to their different learning styles, right? So Edwin might be, one visual, interactive, engaging. Then you have them doing the game on something else, where other students may find, an aha moment within that same concept. So I think it's good. I think it's good to give them those different opportunities and different platforms to introduce the topic.
On that note, what advice would you give to teachers who are just getting started with Edwin?
So just like with the students, playing around with it, definitely the best way to learn. And, going through what it is that you're teaching. So like I said before, how you can tailor it to what it is that you're teaching. So if you're teaching grade 6 math, you can add that to your Edwin ecosystem for yourself, and then go through the different curriculum concepts that are on there and kind of look through that way, or even look through the different collections, because there's so many that are made already. So why do more work, right?
Exactly. Why reinvent the wheel? We're trying to make life easier for everybody.
Yeah. And then how easy it is to add it to things like Google Classroom, because now that we've all been through COVID and still are, and with the online learning, because all teachers were in our province, Google Classroom became a mainstream platform. So I think if teachers were able to see just how easy it is to attach things to Google Classroom through the Edwin portal, I think they'd be more inclined to want to use it, right? So I think if people actually dived in, tried it, and, explored through it, I think they'd actually like it. The fact that it has all the cores on there, before, Taryn and I were only looking more for the science and social, but the fact that now there's more math, there's language arts. I think she mentioned that French was going to be on there as well, right? That there's more to it than just people, that preconceived notion of it being just a textbook. So having all the different cores tailored to grade level, tailored to outcomes, I think it's valuable that way. And for teachers to be able to understand that for sure.
Kathy, you've officially become an Edwin ambassador in Sherry and my eyes.
Yes.
We're ready to have you come join the team.
Absolutely.
But we're very excited and very happy that it's become a useful, everyday, practical tool in your classroom. And thank you so much for sharing all of your ideas and how you're using Edwin with your students and sharing it with our colleagues and teachers and everyone that's watching. So thank you so much again for joining us. Any parting words, Sherry?
I'm just so glad you were able to do this and that you agreed to do it, Kathy. It's so valuable to hear from teachers who are really using it in their classroom with their students. And you bring this really exceptional lens of using it face-to-face, remotely hybrid, as a teacher who's comfortable with educational technologies, working with a colleague. It was such a rich experience that you brought to this conversation, and just so grateful that we had this opportunity for you to share it.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.